Hello, and welcome to a wrap up. A wrap up for a month that I actually read a lot of books. I finished 12 books in the month of August. I was attacking some fantasy, continuing some series, read some poetry, found a new favourite book, read some booker books which I was not anticipating doing. Just having a whale of a time in the month. I finished the month on a 3.79 overall, which is very in keeping with how this year's gone for me. It's been a rough year. I was just talking about it in chat because currently in the month of September, I think my average rating is like a 3.4. And I just feel like I'm hitting stinkers that I didn't normally have. And I feel like a lot of my, what I thought were bankers that I was like, this is going to hit, have really let me down. Like, throughout this year, the Numerata book was kind of bang average. I didn't like Catabasis. I thought a new Kwang book was guaranteed to at least get a good rating from me. Books that I thought I'd love, like Between Two Fires, have let me down. And so it's it's been an unfortunate year so far for reading, but there are still, like I said, there's a new favourite in here, a new favourite book, not only of this year, but of my life. I loved one of the books in here. I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to just bang out kind of overall small reviews for the books that I didn't have too many feelings on, and then really go into the ones that I loved and hated this month. To begin with, I read To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Blackgoose. Moniquill, sorry. And this was a book that I've been interested in for a while. People have mentioned it in Discord. Link in the description as always. It's one that I've been interested in. So I kind of let fate decide because I saw the second book got put on NetGalley, and I thought, by Jove, I'll request that. Also, the first one came up, actually. I'm a lie. Well, I requested the second one. Then the first one got re-put up onto NetGalley. So I requested that. They both came through. So I thought, okay, I'll read it. So I read about the first 150 pages of To Shape a Dragon's Breath, and I was like, I'm going to go buy the physical book because I was really enjoying it. And, I want to support Indigenous authors. I want to support smaller fantasy releases. And I thought, this book's been out for a couple of years. I'm getting a free copy through NetGalley. I'm enjoying it, so I should put my money where my mouth is. This follows a main character called Anakuz, who grows up on this island. Dragons have not been there for generations, and she sees a dragon, follows it, finds an egg, takes it back to their village. They're all there, and they do ceremonies. They have their own cultural appreciation and view of dragons and dragon eggs. And she is chosen to be the Nampeshwazit, which is like the dragon rider. As a result, she becomes involved in this plot where she is forced to go to what is called it's an Anglish school. There are her island is colonized by the Anglish, and the idea is that they will fear a culture having a dragon, and that they have to go through certain teachings and schoolings to be able to justify having a dragon and make sure you're looking after it properly and the right way. And so, she is put in this situation where she has to leave her island and go to this school. From there, we get a school-based fantasy. Very good trope, classic trope. We love to see it. The thing that I enjoyed about this book a lot is that Anna Kuz is a great character. She is fiery. Like, there's no point in this book. At no point in this book is there even a hint that she's like, I'll play along. I'll go along with the colonizers. She's literally the entire time like, get fucked. And there is something very enjoyable about that. Otherwise, I also think that the social commentary, the way I feel about this book is that I think if you're 14, 15 years old, I think this is an all ages book. I think adults and teenagers can get a lot from it. But I think that the perfect age is between like 14 to 16, mainly having the mental capacity to recognize and appreciate either the privilege or the lack thereof that you've had in your life. And that this book really hits the nerve in terms of experiencing through an Indigenous character the comments, the feelings, the societal structuring that makes them a minority and makes them feel a certain way. So there are a lot of instances of what would be considered like on the nose or blatant, etc. I have no problem with this because that is the point of the book, and it's about the audience that it's for. And I think that particularly between those ages, they're gonna. I think it has. There are moments that will make them think and be like, "Oh, I've said something like this," or "I didn't think about it that way." That is one of the points of this book, and I think it does it exceptionally well. So I do think that this is a great book. I gave it a 3.5 purely because I think from a technical standpoint, the plotting flow of the book is a little all over the place. We really I felt like some parts of the book were flying through, and then others it was a slog, and it's really up and down in its pacing. And so that was the main flaw for me, where I found that I felt like the book overstayed its welcome slightly with how long it was. But I did still enjoy the characters, the world building, everything that was going on, and I am very intrigued with where we go here. So, To Shape a Dragon's Breath is book 1. Book 2 is that we continued, and I read The Subtle Knife by Phillip Pullman, which is one of the Discord reads, which will be finishing the series with the Amber Spyglass in November, which I am very, very excited for, because book 1 and 2 have been a banger. I gave this a 4.5. There is a full review on the channel, so I'm not going to really say too much other than book 1, loved it. Book 2, really, really enjoyed it too, loving it. And I'm excited where book 3 goes, because a lot of people hate book 3, a lot of people love book 3. If book 3 lands, this is flying up my best fantasy series of all time list. So fingers crossed. But yes, I'll just leave it to the actual standalone review I put there. I listened to an audiobook, Exit Strategy, which is the 4th Murderbot book. I really enjoyed that one. I'm not going to say too much. I think Murderbot's just the perfect kind of palate cleanser. Typically when I'm at work and I've got some time, and I just listen to a whole audiobook at a time. After that, we get into a couple of Booker reads that I was not anticipating having there, because last year when the Booker Prize long list got put out, I wasn't interested really in any of them. It was a really disappointing go, whereas this year it got put out and there were 6, 7, 8 that I was like, oh, these are very interesting premises. And I'd already read and loved Audition, so I was kind of like, the whatever these judges are cooking up, they're onto a winner in my opinion, because Audition has a 3.32 or some shit on Goodreads, and it's one of my favourite books of the year. So I was like, if they're going to go for that, then I'm excited for what else they went for. The first one I read was The Rest of Our Lives by Benjamin Markovits, which I've never read one of his books before, and I requested it from Faber and Faber because it's not available in Canada. I don't know what happened. It was apparently on NetGalley, but it's not listed on Indigo. It's not listed anywhere. I emailed Faber and Faber and was like, yo, I'd love to read this book and review it, but you fucking aren't selling it in Canada, so that would be sick. I don't know whether they are now, but they got back to me the next day with a copy, so God bless them. And I rated it 4 stars. The Rest of Our Lives is a very interesting... It's a road trip book of this middle-aged man who, years ago, he discovers that his wife is cheating on him, and he decides that he's going to stick around for the kids, and when his daughter goes to university, he's done. And so we begin the book where they're kind of packing up and saying goodbye and everything, and he drives his daughter to university, and then he just keeps going. And he meets people that he's known throughout his life. He meets an ex-girlfriend. He does all this stuff. And the thing I found really interesting about the book is that it's very much ruminating on the I apparently cannot speak. The antipathy that men feel. Sorry, I can see my neighbours across the way looking at me through the window. But yeah, it goes into this antipathy that men feel, this disconnect from emotion, disconnect from reality. That the idea that there's no investment in anything, there's no real passion. It's just a slow, monotonous journey through life, and I can see people bouncing off that and being like, I do not like this because the character has no agency. We had the same conversation with my friends last year, but I think the rest of our lives really nailed that. It's a very quick writing as well. The pace is super fast. I was constantly flicking through pages. It took me no time to read it at all, and I saw reviews. Okay, this is going to be a whole little aside about reviews nowadays, because it's been something that's been plaguing me a little. Bad reviews, because it's bad reviews for small books are so terrible for me, because it takes so much to write a book and put it out, and if you're not gonna put the time and effort into thinking about a book, then I just think you kind of suck that way. Because the rest of our lives does not have a good main character. He's not a good guy. Like, it's this book that is a pipeline. It's just exploring the pipeline of antipathy that this man feels and how that leads to being a bad person, be it supporting a friend who is racist, having a job that is tied to racism, supporting someone who's sexist. This culture that exists of men don't have friends in their personal life in adulthood because they struggle to make them. So they cling on to the friends they had when they were in school or something, where it was like jockish kind of behaviour. They could get away with a bit more. They're now businessmen. They're in this business. They have power. And how when your friend has something like that thrown at them, there's this sense of like disconnect to reality where it's just this, like I said, it's just this antipathy, just this, well, they're my boy. I'm going to support my boy. And it's this childishness mixed with power that is explored in this book, where, yeah, our character has some transphobic opinions, supports some sexist and racist opinions. At no point does the author say, I think this is all good. Instead, from my perspective, sure, people may disagree with me, but I thought this book was very much going through this midlife crisis and exploring how this emptiness of feeling and lack of awareness and so much thought is being put into what he's doing and what he's saying, but he's really taking on board nothing and just experiencing. I don't know how to describe it. I was very interested by what he was doing with this character, and I do feel like I don't know how many reviews it has now, because obviously it's on this list. It now has 1,000. When I read it, it had like 300, and it has a 3.43, which I think is about the same as what it had when I read it. I don't know. I can see people like, or I don't think it's the same as Audition and stuff. I don't see people giving it 5 stars, but reading the reviews, I was just kind of like, you've given this a rating I would not argue with, but your reasoning I have a problem with. So that's my spiel over. Next up, I read Flesh, which is another of the Booker long list. I got this from the library by David Szalay. Yeah, I got this from the library and I gave it a 4.25. I do think this is better than the rest of our lives. Another very, very interesting read that I can see a lot of people bouncing off. It begins with this young Hungarian boy who lives in this apartment block, and his mother asks him to go help his neighbour, this lady, to go do her shopping and stuff. And the opening section of the book is this dive into this boy's feeling as he is groomed by this woman, and it goes into detail in terms of what's happening, so I will give a trigger warning for that. And it goes through the cognitive dissonance that happens inside of him, where he is simultaneously repulsed and attracted by this woman, he wants and does not want it. It explores the concept of the fact that he does not have the 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 wiring inside of his brain to comprehend what is being done to him, and it kind of ends with he declares his love for this woman. This woman says, "We're done then. I didn't think this was going to happen. We cannot continue. I have a husband. This is wrong. This cannot be." And he becomes emotionally devastated and angry. And it ends in a kind of this scuffle with her husband because he wants to get in and see her, and he takes a tumble down the stairs and the husband dies. And then from there, I thought the book was going to go into the consequences of this, the legal ramifications, what happens in terms of where does it go. He has technically murdered someone, but he's also the victim of abuse. What happens here? Instead, I will make it abundantly clear that is not the case. We skip forward and he's now out of prison in a different scenario. He goes to jail. Then we have him being in England. He becomes a bodyguard there. The book spans an entire lifetime in very different circumstances, jumping through time. I, for a while, struggled with that because I thought it was such a strong opening to then go into the ramifications. If you're going to write about this, go into the ramifications. And instead we don't, but we do at the same time because his character is informed by what happened to him as a child. And the whole book is about this feeling of never quite being settled in one place, never quite feeling safe in one place, never quite home. And like as an immigrant, as a poorer person moving into a higher class strata, someone who is constantly moving through different places, different times, different cultures, different classes, and how that transiency can shape someone both negatively and positively. And I thought that it was a really strong book that way. It was a very interesting book. Like I said, I gave it a 4.25. I thought I was going to give it like a 3 for most of it. I thought it was going to be like a good 5 at the beginning, then it dropped, and then it reclaimed itself, and I ended up actually feeling it was a very strong book. So that was that one. Overall, the book of books have been very strong so far. Like, Audition was a 5, Flesh was a 4.25, The Rest of Our Lives was a 4, then there is another one I'm going to talk about in a bit. But, yeah, strong go. Then I read Salems a lot because my dad is currently going to read all of Stephen King's books slowly but surely. And I read Carrie July, and so Salem's Lot was the August book. I'm not reading The Shining, I've already read The Shining, so next time you'll hear from me, I'll be reading The Stand. But Salem's Lot is a very good book. I gave it a 3.75, and the reason for that is because, I'll say it simply, Midnight Mass is this perfected. There has also been like Sinners, that kind of thing. There have been there's been media that has done a very similar thing that's been inspired by this, and I think it's just done it better. Mainly, I think that the town and everything was fascinating, that the concept was fascinating, very creepy, genuinely unsettling. I loved the premise. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to spoil anything, but it is the idea that there's this town, very small town, and this guy goes back there. He grew up there, he had a bad experience there, and he's now coming back as a writer, trying to write a new novel. Classic Stephen King. But and there's something dark going on in the town that we don't know about. It's all very the beginning of staples for Stephen King. But the problem is that I just didn't connect with the main character, as opposed to other Stephen King books where I'm just enraptured by the main character. I think the fault of this book is that everything else was fascinating, but the characters we were experiencing it through weren't as compelling as other Stephen King protagonists. So that's that. Then we go to a real disappointment, which is that I read The Weird of the White Wolf by Michael Moorcock, which was the last book in this collection, the first 4 books in Elric of Melniboné. What I did not know about the 4th book is that it was written before everything else. And Apparently edits were made before it was published. Don't know what edits were made, because this reads like an entirely different character with entirely different perspective and moral feelings, and everything is different about Elric in this book. But the beginning resolves one of the biggest things in the first book. So, like, book 2 and 3, which were written all different times as well, but book 2 and 3 chronologically have you exploring being prepared to go back to what was happening in the first book. And this does it, and it's fucking shit. Like, it's actually dog shit. The first part of this book, because it's basically 3 novellas, the first one is so fucking terrible, I could not believe it. It's, yeah, like, Elric is a completely different character. The internal consistencies of what is happening made me fucking angry. So Elric goes to this city and he razes it to the ground. And when he's leaving, a big fleet turns up from the, like, who were in the city, left on their boats, and then came to destroy them, because they were like, that's how we'll get them. We'll wait until they're leaving, after they're tired, after raping and killing all of our people, and then we'll kill them. And it's like, are you a fucking idiot? Your plan is to leave the city defenseless, so they can rape and plunder it, and raze it to the ground, destroy everything, and then you'll kill them when they leave. That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. It reminds me, I was saying this to Grace, there's a scene in, it's my least favourite scene in the entire Lord of the Rings films. It is in the Return of the King, when Faramir is defending the kind of the riverside when the boats turn up in Osgiliath, and they're all got their backs to the wall, and all the boats come in, and they let half of the orcs go by, and then Faramir goes, yeah, and jumps out, and they start killing people. And it's like, that's the stupidest decision a human being could possibly make. You let half of your enemy go past you, then you jumped in the middle, allowing them to crush you in the middle. It's the stupidest thing in the Return of the King. I hate it with my entire heart. It's probably the reason Return of the King is my least favourite film in that trilogy. No wonder Denethor would prefer if Boromir was still alive, if Faramir's doing shit like that. Because it's not book Faramir, he's super clever. This guy's a fucking idiot with the plans he's got. So, it was the same thing here. Elric, like, they go there, and the people were like, oh yeah, we'll nip on a boat, we'll let them kill us all, and then we'll kill them. It made me livid. So, I do still recommend Elric. I've bought book 2, I've got it right here. The next 4 books are inside of it. I look forward to it, because I really enjoyed the first 3 books. But that 4th book is a fucking shitter. Next up, I read Universality by Natasha Brown, which is also on the Booker International list. Assembly was her first novel, which was also put on the Booker list when that came out. And this was very interesting. This goes into the power of language and how stories are told. Essentially, the book is split into 2. Is this news report, this news article, which is talking about an attack that occurred where this man was struck to the ground by a block of gold, which was at a farm which has been taken over by this kind of, what's referred to as kind of a, depending on who you see, like, cult fucking, like, just a group of students living in this place and trying to live off the land. It's got all different views on what it actually is. But it culminates this idea of like the movement ends when one of them attacks another with a piece of gold, hence on the front cover. So we're reading the news article written by this person, and then the rest of the book is then inspecting that by following the person who wrote it, going through the people they met, what reactions are to it, whether they really knew everything, whether they wanted to know everything, how they came up with the idea, how they found out about it, the role of the clickability, the clickbait nature of modern journalism, how because people are working on the breadline with freelance journalism, how it leaves you open to corruption, just this whole view on the degradation of journalism. And it's fascinating to read because you can see it every day looking around you. So if you're someone who doesn't like being reminded of how much the world fucking sucks, then yeah, this may not be for you. But you also have to be aware that's what it's doing, because that is very specifically what the book is doing. So if you don't get on board with that, then the book won't work for you either. A lot of these books are walking a very fine line that you need to find if you're going to enjoy it. Otherwise, you're doomed. Which is, I think, why a lot of them have low ratings. I mean, like, the Universality also has, like, a 3.3. I gave it a 3.75. I thought it was very good. I just didn't quite love it. And that's purely because of the length. I think we could have really delved into more. And some of the plot, like the pacing, could have been ironed out within that. Because I think we spend so much on that initial story that the book isn't really about that story. So I think it would benefit from a reread. Now we go into my new favourite, a book that took me by surprise and throttled me with enjoyment, which is a weird phrase. But I read Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut, continuing my reading every Kurt Vonnegut book, which I plan on doing, at least novels. And I have read Play a Piano last month in July. Then I skipped Sirens of Titan because it wasn't available at the library yet. So I read Mother Night instead, which is his third novel and is one of my favourite books of all time. I picked this up at Value Village, which is like a second-hand book, like a store in the UK, in Canada. And I read the description and was immediately like, I need to read this shit. Which is, Mother Night is a daring challenge to our moral sense. American Howard W. Campbell Jr., a spy during World War II, is now on trial in Israel as a Nazi war criminal. But is he really guilty? In this brilliant book, rife with true gallows humour, Vonnegut turns black and white into a chilling shade of grey, with a verdict that will haunt us all. The foreword to this book is essentially Kurt Vonnegut talking about his experience in Dresden. For those who are unaware, Kurt Vonnegut was in Dresden during the bombing following the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War. And so I personally think that Vonnegut has one of the most interesting views on modern history that you can have, which is he was on the side that won the war. He also experienced the aftermath of his side, having won, committing war crimes and decimating and killing thousands of people, tens of thousands of people in Dresden. And he describes how he was forced to go into rubble as a prisoner of war and dig out corpses and all of this stuff. And that must be something that is impossible to wrap your head around. And his work mirrors that, because he constantly works in contradictions. And I love that about him. And so, yeah, you're in reading Mother Night, you're reading this person writing after they have been arrested and they are on trial for war crimes in Israel as a Nazi. And it goes through this idea that, was he actually an American spy who was working for the Americans but peddling Nazi propaganda as a playwright, as a radio host, to send code? And the idea of, does that matter? If you think that you're good inside, but everything you do on the outside is pure evil, does it make a difference at the end of the day that you may have been trying to help, but the actions you did created the atmosphere that made it rational to Germans to believe in the Nazi movement? Like, he's so good at Nazi propaganda that all the people investigating me are like, you're too good at this. You clearly hate Jewish people too much for you to actually not be on our side. And so yeah, it gets into this whole idea of does it matter? And I think that's such a brilliant question, because so many people, you have justifications for things and different people, and you try to come up with explanations to explain people's actions. And I think just the simple question of does it matter strips everything down to its core. and I was fascinated. I read the book in 3 days. I flew through it. It is unbelievably good, and there are so many little things in this book because it's getting into the idea of history as a circle, but a circle that doesn't repeat itself one to one. It switches sides and people change, and but the cogs still turn, but the people turning like shifting them change, and there's a specific reference that I think is just so clever, where later on in the book as the book goes along, you get closer to him being arrested, and there's a part where it's like Israel are really pushing on America to relinquish him and expedite him over for war crimes to be put on trial. And the American government is like, he is an American citizen, and as a result, we will not expedite him. And the Israeli government is just a one-line reference. The Israeli government say that he was born in America, but he grew up in Germany. He is a man with no land. He is a man of no land. And that's such a clever use, because obviously one of the things that was thrown at Jewish people throughout history, but especially in World War II and the precursor to it, was the idea that they are a people of no land. They did not have a specific country. Jewish people lived everywhere and nowhere. And that was used to persecute them. It was used to persecute them out. Was the idea that they did not belong, they did not have a land. And now you're seeing Israel, the state of the Jewish people, target this man and use that same method as a way to get what they want. And it's this perfect example that is never explained to the audience, just put in there, that perfectly summarizes what this book is trying to do, which is just call everyone a hypocrite. And I loved it for it. And specifically, there is this line towards the end. There's this explanation. There's this showdown where our main character... So this is spoilers, just straight up. Our main character is with this group of American Nazis. These fascists that are there, and they've been cornered, and the police have just burst through the door. The law enforcement are there. The character, Dr. Jones, he's there with Father Keeley, who's this priest, and with the guy called the Black Fuhrer, which is this an African American who is also a fascist. And it says, Dr. Jones, this is quite a long bit, so if you want to skip this, feel free, but I think it's a banger. It says, Dr. Jones stopped halfway down the stairs, confronted his tormentors. All I've done, he said majestically, is do what you people should be doing. What should we be doing, said the G-Man. He was obviously in command of the raid. Protecting the Republic, said Jones. Why bother us? Everything we do is to make the country stronger. Join with us, and let's go after the people who are trying to make it weaker. Who's that, said the G-Man. I have to tell you, said Jones. Haven't you even found that out in the course of your work? The Jews, the Catholics, the N-words, the Unitarians, the foreign-born who don't have any understanding of democracy, who play into the hands of the socialists, the communists, the anarchists, the Antichrist, and the Jews. For your information, said the G-Man in a cool triumph, I am a Jew. That proves what I've been saying, said Jones. How's that, said the G-Man. The Jews have infiltrated everything, said Jones, smiling the smile of a logician who could never be topped. You talk about the Catholics and the N-word, said the G-Man, and yet here you are, your two best friends are a Catholic and an N-word. What's so mysterious about that, said Jones. Don't you hate them, said the G-Man. Certainly not, said Jones. We all believe the same basic thing. What's that, said the G-Man. This once proud country of ours is falling into the hands of the wrong people, said Jones. He nodded, and so did Father Keeley and the Black Fuhrer. And before it gets back on the right track, said Jones, some heads are going to have to roll. I have never... so then it switches back into our perspective of our main character, and it's... I have never seen a more sublime demonstration of the totalitarian mind, a mind which might be likened unto a system of gears whose teeth have been filed off at random. Such a snaggle-toothed thought machine, driven by a standard or even a substandard libido, whirls with the jerky, noisy, gaudy pointlessness of a cuckoo clock in hell. The boss G-Man concluded wrongly that there were no teeth on the gears in the mind of Jones. You're completely crazy, he said. Jones wasn't completely crazy. The dismaying thing about the classic totalitarian mind is that any given gear, though mutilated, will have at its circumference unbroken sequences of teeth that are immaculately maintained, that are exquisitely machined. Hence the cuckoo clock in hell, keeping perfect time for 8 minutes and 33 seconds, jumping ahead 14 seconds, keeping perfect time for 6 seconds, jumping ahead 2 seconds, keeping perfect time for 2 hours and 1 second, then jumping ahead a year. The missing teeth, of course, are simple, obvious truths available and comprehensible even to 10-year-olds in most cases. The willful filing off of gear teeth, the willful doing without certain obvious pieces of information. That was how a household as contradictory as one composed of Jones, Father Keeley, Vice Bundesführer Krakauer, and the Black Führer could exist in relative harmony. That was how my father-in-law could contain in one mind an indifference towards slave women and love for a blue vase. That was how Rudolf Hoe's commandment of Auschwitz could alternate over the loudspeakers of Auschwitz, great music, and calls for corpse carriers. That was how Nazi Germany could sense no important differences between civilization and hydrophobia. That is the closest I can come to explaining the legions, the nations of lunatics I've seen in my time. I think that's just, especially given the situation the world finds itself in, especially in North America, the United States, should I say, that is a poignant quote if ever there was one, and one that I think should be read more often. Then I read The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. It is a good book. I gave it 3 stars. Unfortunately, it was the issue where this book was so obsessed with the science that everything else fell by the wayside. And so, even though I enjoyed the writing style, I found myself interested. The plot never quite got going. It was so fixated on the minutiae of following things by the code, going through like different levels of this like situation, and going through dossiers and all this stuff, and computer readouts and everything, that I can see why it was so popular and so fresh and new, but I feel like it's not my vibe. It was never my vibe. I read it as a buddy, as a book club read with like my old housemates and Grace as well and that kind of thing, but yeah, it's only a 3-star for me, unfortunately. Next up, I will not say much about this one either, even though I did give it a 4.5 stars and loved it. It's because Guy Gavriel K continues to be a master of standalone fantasy. I love his work, but I will just be repeating everything I said about The Lions of Arasan and A Song for Arbon. This is not my favourite Guy Gavriel K book, but it is still phenomenal. And the fact that a 4.5 is not my favourite and there's 2 books that I like more says a hell of a lot about how good of a writer he is. So read Guy Gavriel K. And finally, I read Rumi, The Book of Love, translated by Coleman Barks. The problem was, the reason I only gave it 3 is that as much as I enjoyed the poetry, the translator was fucking insufferable. He was absolutely fucking me off the entire book. I don't know, I just can't explain it. Everything was about him. He's like, oh, look at me. They asked me to do this. They asked me to make this collection. I didn't really want to, but then they offered me money, so I said I would. And, you know, this is my opinion on love and stuff. It's like, I'm not reading this for you, Mr. Barks. I couldn't give a fuck what you think. I'm reading this to read Rumi poetry. It's not like he's providing commentary. He's literally there being like, there's a footnote in here where you go to the back. I was hoping to find some context for the quote or something. No, it's him being like, I remember going on holiday with my wife. And I'm like, who gives a flying fuck what you think, Mr. Barks? I couldn't believe it. So that book only got a 3-star because half of it is this fucking guy just giving random asides and pissing me off the entire time. The poetry itself was fantastic. There were some real great quotes in there. There is an image that sticks in my mind where it's following the death of this person, and he describes the idea of that he is this bow, and the arrow, which is the parting of his friend, has been fired, and now the bow is left trembling. And I was just like, that is such beautiful imagery for this person losing someone, and just describing the bow as trembling and relating that to the human experience of grief. I was just like, that is a fucking banger line. So the poetry was good. I just cannot stand. I've never read such a small excerpt from someone and so instantly taken a dislike to them. R.I.P. my man Commonbergs. I don't know if you're alive or not, but I shall not be reading your translations of Rumi anymore because I find you obnoxious and pretentious. So, shout out to my boy. There you go. They're all the books I read in the month of August. If you did enjoy it, please do like, please do subscribe. The link to the Patreon in case you're willing to and are in a position to be able to support, then I would very much appreciate that. Otherwise, let me know what you read in the month of August. I know we're a bit into September now. Whoopsie doops. Things happen. But hopefully it was a good month. Mine's been pretty standard, but Mother Night really did. It did a lot to help. But as always, have a nice rest of your day.